Hello, 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 hello. This is an amazing day. I have to take a break from the regular NFL videos to come out with an emergency UFC reaction to the news that John Jones has officially retired, according to Dana White. I mean, there's so many different things I want to talk about this video. I want to obviously rant on Dana White, John Jones, John Jones fans. But it's also important to finally celebrate the fact that this ridiculous drama is finally over. We can move on. The UFC heavyweight division has been dead, unironically dead for the last 2 years. Now, thankfully, Tom Aspinall has been trying. He's been trying his very best to save it, to do everything he can, but he can only go so far. Dana White, John Jones, and the collective UFC organization has held him back and has propped up an absolute fraud, piece of shit scum that is John Jones. And, where do I start? I mean, I'm sure, well, this is the thing. If you're not a UFC fan, it's almost impossible to even understand the situation here because in every other major sport, you simply play who you play. So you don't have the option. The Chiefs didn't have the option in the Super Bowl of just ducking the Eagles and playing somebody. They had to play who was in front of them because that was the best team, and that's what happens in other sports leagues. But it's different in boxing and UFC and things like that. The promotion picks and chooses who fights who. Now, typically, well, always when there is an interim champion and an undisputed champion, it is then the responsibility of that undisputed champion to fight the interim champion. That did not happen recently because Tom Aspinall won the interim championship, if I'm not mistaken, at the end of 2023 when he beat Sergey Pavlovich. John Jones was injured at the time, if I'm not mistaken. So Tom Aspinall won the interim championship now at the end of 2023. He then was calling for a John Jones title fight, a completely and perfectly reasonable thing to do, considering the fact he just won the interim belt. It is the overwhelming common sense take for the interim champion's next fight to be against the undisputed champ. No longer, if there's an interim champion, the belt is not it's disputed, so it's not an undisputed champion. But the goal is for the interim champion to fight the undisputed champion. So that was the logical next step. John Jones, however, for some reason, was gifted the choice of who he wanted to fight next, which goes against every set of logic and merit, and just it completely spits in the face of the company. But Dana White and the UFC higher ups, for some reason, are absolutely in love with John Jones, suspiciously in love with John Jones, who has done nothing but fuck over the company for the entire time. He has been a horrible champion. He has been involved in a dozen scandals. He's a terrible piece of shit human being. We'll get into that later. But it's like, of all the people, I understand why they supported Conor through thick and thin. I understand why they support Khabib. They have people who just make them so much money, but I wouldn't even put John Jones on that level. He's been around for so long, so I think his total numbers in terms of what he's made them probably puts him in that category. But in terms of like per pay-per-view, John Jones is not the biggest or even one of the biggest stars in UFC history, in my opinion. But they still wrap their arms around him and hold on for dear life because they gave him the option of who he wanted to fight, knowing damn well Tom Aspinall was the interim champion, the number one contender, the most deserving title contender, bar none. It was a no brainer. However, they let John Jones pick and choose his opponent, which is a big no no in the fight game. Everybody looks down on you when you do it. But the UFC, for some reason, bent the rules so John Jones could pick his opponent. And who did he choose? Who did John Jones pick for his first title defense as the heavyweight champion? He chose 44-year-old retired Stipe Miocic. Stipe, at the time, had not fought in 3 years, had not won a fight in 4 years, and his most recent performance, he got knocked out by Francis Ngannou during COVID. That's who John Jones picked, handpicked literally cherry picked as his first title defense. An embarrassment to the entire sport. I called it out deservingly so when it happened. I said it was a disgrace. I was embarrassed for going and watching it live. It was disgusting. It was abominable. But I think the reason the UFC did that is because first of all, they were afraid that Jon Jones would just retire on them. But I think second of all, I think Dana White and the UFC thought that if they allowed him to get this complete fucking layup, and it's no disrespect to Stipe. Stipe was a 47-year-old retired fucking firefighter coming in and fighting Jon Jones. He had a 0% chance of winning, and he still pieced up Jon Jones the second round. It was embarrassing how long it took Jon Jones to finish Stipe. After like 13 minutes, he landed a spinning back kick that sat Stipe down. I mean, it was a circus, honestly. And then afterwards, they paraded around and danced around like it was some massive accomplishment by Jon Jones. It made me sick to my stomach watching the Stipe Miocic fight and how they treated both Jon and Stipe afterwards. But that fight happened. And after Tom Aspinall was there, he was in attendance. It was the UFC's plan, everybody's plan that afterwards they would have Jon Jones announce that he wanted to fight Tom Aspinall next. Jon Jones did not go along with that plan. He did his own thing. After the Stipe fight, it was so before the fight, it was the overwhelming majority of people who said, "What the fuck is going on? Why is he not fighting Tom Aspinall?" But then there was the UFC and a small minority of Jon Jones fans who said, "He's Jon Jones. Let him do whatever he wants. He can fight Aspinall whenever he wants." Those are what we call the incorrect, stupid, brain dead morons, but they were in control in this situation. So after the Stipe fight, there was a collective 100% on a unanimous uh, movement, which is extremely rare, that wanted Jon Jones to fight Tom Aspinall. It's already insulting enough. And by the way, I forgot to mention, while all of this was going on, Tom Aspinall took it upon himself to listen to what I'm about to say, defend the interim championship. Again, if you're not a fight fan, you don't even understand what I just said. If you are a fight fan, you shouldn't understand what I just said because it's so unfathomable. It doesn't make sense. An interim champion's next fight should always be for the undisputed title, 100% of the time. But because this Aspinall Jon Jones situation was so fucked up by the UFC, because they absolutely just fumbled this terribly, Tom Aspinall, and just because he's just that good and he's an actual savage, a real fighter, if you will, he wanted to stay active and avenge an early loss in his career, which was not a loss. He blew out his knee earlier in his career against Curtis Blades, but he avenged that loss in England and knocked out Curtis Blades in like 50 seconds. That's what a real champion does. He fights real contenders, dangerous contenders, and puts them away early. Jon Jones fights 50-year-old retired Stipe Miocic, and it takes him 13 minutes to finish him. That's the difference. But I failed to mention that was going on throughout this entire process. So back to where we were earlier. Jon Jones finishes Stipe Miocic, and everybody agrees he should fight Tom Aspinall. Jon Jones has other plans. First of all, the first story is that he asked for like $30 million, which is just unheard of in the UFC. Nobody, I think, ever besides maybe Conor McGregor the Khabib fight. I don't think anybody besides Conor has ever touched close to that amount of money. Jon Jones, I think, asked for this amount because he assumed, like most people, that the UFC would never pay that amount. Reports later came out that the UFC called his bluff and they were willing to offer Jon Jones this amount of money in order to come back and fight Tom Aspinall. Jon Jones, then, shocked by this realization that they were willing to pay him this much money, has no excuse, right? Because in his mind, he said, "Well, if you want me to fight Tom Aspinall, pay me this absorbent amount of money." UFC offers him the contract. He turns it down, and this is the whole crux. The whole reason that this is even an issue is that Jon Jones, the baddest man on the planet, he's a bad man, Jon Bones Jones, this guy that's been propped up mainly by the UFC as this dangerous, badass, doesn't give a fuck type of fighter. He'll fight anyone, any place, anywhere, even though his entire career has been quite literally the opposite. But that's who the UFC props him up to be, right? But in the reality, no matter what the circumstance, the location, the amount of money, everything that Jon Jones wants, at the end of the day, he refused to fight Tom Aspinall because he was afraid. And deservingly so. Everybody and their mother was picking Tom Aspinall to knock John Jones out cold. And I mean, that's just the smart pick there. I mean, John Jones has looked extremely sloppy. I mean, we've only seen him once the last 2.5 years. So I mean, he's had like one fight, one real fight besides the Stipe fight, one real fight in the last like 5 years. He's looked terrible. Two out of his last three fights, Stipe, Dominic Reyes, and Cyril Gane. I mean, John Jones, he's a joke at this point in his career. He's an absolute joke, and he knew, just like everybody else knew, that Tom Aspinall would sleep him out cold. So he ducked Tom Aspinall. By the way, just like he ducked Francis Ngannou, just like he ducked the rematch against Dominic Reyes, just like he ducked Jan Blachowicz on the come up. John Jones, it's really funny. Every time there's a up and coming guy who either beats him or who he thinks he could lose against, he just doesn't fight him. Because you saw what happened the last time he fought a young up and coming contender, Dominic Reyes. He got the shit kicked out of him. Dominic Reyes beat pissed down John Jones' leg, and he lost that fight. Was given the robbery decision, of course, and his career since then has been an absolute. John Jones, it's so satisfying to see because John Jones is a guy who is literally being propped up and held up by the UFC organization. And in their eyes, he can do no wrong. But in the eyes of the public, nobody, I would say this, in the eyes of the public, in the sheer volume of it all, nobody has hurt their legacy more than John Jones has over these last 2 years. He has absolutely destroyed his reputation. And it's so funny because you know why? This is not even close to the worst thing he's done as a person. It's so strange, right? So many people respected John Jones, although he's just a deplorable, despicable person. And you know what? Let's actually break this down as to exactly why I hate John Jones, the human being, so much. Because I don't know. I made a video about this a couple months ago, but I don't know if I went into exact detail in that video about why I hate John Jones so much. So let me break it down exactly for you why I hate John Jones, the person. First off, he's a cheater, not in terms of a relationship, in terms of the integrity of sports. PED abusers typically in every sport get ostracized, not John Jones. John Jones has failed more drug tests than any other UFC fighter in history. In history. He is a blatant cheater. And if you look at his career before and after he supposedly got off steroids, he looked like a completely different person. His last stretch of fights at light heavyweight was embarrassing. He went 5 rounds with Anthony Smith and Thiago Santos off steroids. He got the shit kicked out of him by Dominic Reyes off steroids. And who else? He went 5 rounds with Ovince St. Preux. John Jones could not finish anybody down the stretch of his second light heavyweight title run, and he looked absolutely dog shit once he got off steroids. That's the difference. And also, the biggest win of his career, the second DC fight, the head kick where he knocked him out, the biggest moment of his career got overturned rather to a no contest because, yeah, of course, he tested positive for steroids. All the biggest moments of his career you can attribute to steroids. So he's just a cheater. He's a blatant cheater who abused steroids to get an advantage. He literally hid from drug testers when they came to try and test him. He threatened the drug testers as well. He went to court for that because he threatened them. So he's a blatant cheater. So I have just off that, his legacy means nothing. You can't see it. I just spit on the ground. That's what John Jones' legacy means to me. Absolutely nothing. He's a cheater. He's irrelevant to me in the all-time legacy of the UFC. John Jones' name, he's not even mentioned, except in order to laugh at and make fun of. But that's one side of the professional aspect. He's a blatant steroid abuser and a cheater. I have no respect for that. To get more into the personal side of things, his out the octagon life, if you will. There was one instance a couple years ago where he was apparently driving under the influence. Shitty thing to do. I think we can all agree on that. Driving under the influence, hits a pregnant lady in her car with his car, gets into an accident, driving under the influence. Now, I think that happens to a lot of people. It's a massive mistake, but I think, it can be mitigated by the fact if you try and help the person, if you call the police, if you serve some jail time, that can be remedied. You know what John Jones does? He runs away from the scene of the crime, leaving a pregnant lady with a broken arm from the car crash, passed out in the car, doesn't even check on her, runs back to his own car to grab some cocaine. It's almost unbelievable. This is the UFC heavyweight champion. But that's what he does in that instance. Complete irredeemable piece of shit human being. Then the cream of the crop. If if you some the mental gymnastics that John Jones fans somehow have to do in order to like this person completely baffles me. But if you still like John Jones after this next little part, I have no respect for you. John Jones is one of those people where if you associate with him by association, I also don't fuck with you. So apparently, allegedly, I have to say allegedly because this was never proven in court, but it's a fact. Allegedly, in Las Vegas a couple years ago, I believe this is when he was inactive and he was not fighting at all. This was after he lost Dominic Reyes in a Las Vegas hotel several years ago. He beat his wife. He left her bloody. She had a bruised, bloody lip. Police were called. There was a full police report on this in front of his children. John Jones beat his wife. It's not deniable. It's a fact. She was crying. Cops were called. She refused to press charges because in this country, you can beat your wife and nothing can happen to you unless she goes forward and accuses you and does all that. So that's how this works. So John Jones beat his wife brutally, left her bloody in front of his children. Just he's a this is all in a police report, by the way. This is not me just making shit up. So you have a wife beating, steroid abusing, drug addict. Also, apparently he's gay, which is like pretty much confirmed. I mean, and not necessarily saying that's a bad, but I'm just listing off things here. Gay, wife beater, steroid abuser, drug addict, all these things, right? All these things in his personal life, which some could find morally detestable. Now, combine that with the fact that he is ducking, blatantly ducking his UFC career against his toughest opponents, Tom Aspinall, Francis Ngannou. He cherry picked. Oh my god! The more I talk about it, the more upset I get. I just don't understand. I I really one thing I like to do, or I try and do often, is to put myself in other people's perspective and try and understand what they think and how they feel. If you call yourself a John Jones fan, I really don't get it because he's not an entertaining fighter. He's a pretty boring fighter to watch, especially his last 6 7 fights. He's not a likable person at all. He's a morally he should be in prison. John Jones should be in prison. He's a terrible person. So he's not an entertaining fighter. He's not a good person at all. He's a cheater. He cheats. He's just a blatant cheater. I just don't want to. He cheats and he ducks his most difficult opponents. He robs the fans. He robs the fans of good fights. We never saw Jones versus Aspinall. We never saw Jones versus Ngannou. We never saw the Dominic Reyes rematch. He robs us of good fights. He cheats. He ducks, beats his wife. I don't get it. Real, please, if you're a John Jones fan, please give me some explanation. I have to know what's the reason to like John Jones. Is there any? I don't get it. Unless you're somebody that just finds people who other people call successful, and then you just like ride their coattails and you latch on to them just because other people talk about them as successful. Unless you're one of those people, which I mean, you have no morals at all, I would suppose. But unless you're one of those people, please tell me what is there to like about John Jones. And the final part of this rant, which is just this is what this turned into at this point. Dana White. Dana White needs to retire right along with John Jones, in my opinion. He has, I mean, it feels like ever since UFC 300, Dana White has checked out. It felt like that was his going out party. And since then, he's just done nothing. UFC has taken a major downward, it's been on a downward trend. It, as many great cards as there are, because I feel like 314 was a great card. I feel like 308 was, since 300, by the way, I'm talking about. We've had two great cards, in my opinion, and 308 and 314. But there's been more terrible cards than that. I think of the Australia card earlier this year. I mean, I think of what other card was it? It was a it was the last card. I mean, the Canada card was also terrible. Besides the main event, I feel like there's been as many terrible events as there've been like really good events lately. And most pay-per-views are just it's like whatever, hit or miss pretty much. There's still Apex Fight Nights. The overall quality of UFC has just been on a downward trend. And it's like every day I see some question, is the UFC dying? Is the UFC, and this is all under Dana White's watch because he's more concerned about promoting boxing than giving us anything. And the heavyweight division. The heavyweight division is dead. The UFC heavyweight division is dead. This storied division with great champions and amazing fights, it's dead. There's nothing. It's a barren wasteland. There's only like 20 heavyweights on the roster. On the roster. The best heavyweight in the world, Francis Ngannou, is not even in the promotion. John Jones won't fight anybody. And now let's look at Tom Aspinall because this is the final part of the video here. Take a look on the left. Don't look at John Jones. I'll scroll down. Who is there to fight for Tom Aspinall? Because here's the thing. Here's the thing, right? He's already Volkov. He beat him. He beat Pavlovich, beat Blades, beat Tybura, if I'm not mistaken, and Spivak. Who is there to fight? Ciryl Gane? Ciryl Gane is an absolute joke. Nobody wants to see Ciryl Gane fight at all, let alone in a title fight. Who is there to fight? There's nobody. Because on top of the fact that John Jones and Dana White have kept this division in complete limbo at the top in terms of title fights, there's also been no activity at like underneath. It's like Jailton Almeida is the hype up and coming contender. Jailton Almeida, Waldo Cortez Acosta. I thought this guy was like more of a joke a year ago. He's number 7 in the world. He's one fight away from a title shot, probably. What is going on, man? This division is embarrassing. This guy right here won one fight. He won one fight. He's number 14 in the world. Tai Tuivasa is on like a 5-fight losing streak. He's number 11. And by the way, he went to war with Ciryl Gane. The heavyweight division, that could honestly, that deserves a video in its entirety because it's a joke, man. Marcin Tybura, Sergey Spivak, top 10. Waldo Cortez Acosta, number 7. And all the top 6 in terms of like the actual dangerous, like respectable heavyweights. Aspinall knocked out this guy, submitted this guy, I think. Like he's beaten everybody. So the UFC heavyweight division is dead. John Jones killed it, and Dana White needs to be fired or just retire. It's embarrassing, man. It's tough being a fan of the UFC when this is the heavyweight division. So, yeah, man, that's gonna be it for this video. Let us dance on the grave of John Jones. He's done. He's retired. And by the way, thankfully, John Jones did not get a heartfelt retirement speech. He did not get a promo package put together in Octagon. He did not get to go. He didn't get to go out on his own terms. He was pretty much kicked out of the company because he ducked actual dangerous fighters, and he has completely ruined his own legacy. The MMA fan base as a whole has completely turned on John Jones and will continue to clown him for the rest of his life until he probably ends up in jail at some point for all the shit he's done. But that makes me a little happy that a bad person like John Jones is now going to eternally get clowned and criticized and mocked online. That's what he deserves. So leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. I will see you all in the next one. Peace.